Welcome to the JD Bunkis podcast. Brad Treliving's tenure in Toronto is over, and their offseason begins. And it begins with what will be the most important decision of this offseason, if we're being honest. It begins with most likely the most important decisions of Keith Pelly's career with MLSE. And it begins with a franchise that has a fan base that I can't say is feeling overly confident in the moment right now. Brad Treliving goes, and it's deserved, right? I don't think that anybody would be making the case that he should be staying on, he should still be doing the job, and that he was the right guy for the future, or that this was anywhere close to the right setup. You go through all the moves, and of course, I think most people did them last night, either a mental checklist, either maybe you read an article, maybe you just have it off the top of your head. I don't know exactly what you had, but it's not a pretty picture. It's not a pretty picture for what Brad Treliving ended up doing in terms of the long-term view of the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? A couple of first-round picks went out the door in trades that were clear overpays with Brandon Carlo and Scott Lawton. Those two deals probably being the ones that really did him in. Because let's be honest, if he didn't do those two trades and the Leafs still had their draft picks in the upcoming two seasons, I don't think that anybody would be crying as much about this today as they are, right? Like those were the two death knell moves. He signed Max Domi to a contract extension that wasn't overly favorable. He tried to bring in Ryan Reeves on a contract that didn't really work out with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He signed Tyler Bertuzzi to a one-year deal. He gave Chris Tanev a 6-year contract, which in year one looks phenomenal. The remaining 5, I think it's yet to be determined, but you can probably lean one way rather than the other in terms of trying to figure out whether or not this is going to end up being a good deal for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He traded for Edmondson. He traded for Ilya Lyubushkin. Minor deals that were around the fringes early on in his tenure. Made the Dakota Joshua trade, the Michelli trade. Again, two moves that I would say have turned out to be pretty much complete flops, even though they were not huge assets that went out the door. He got tough returns back for Scott Lawton, Bobby McMahon, and Nick Wall was fine. But the situation that preceded it with Mitch Marner was probably not the greatest business in terms of coming in here and not getting something done earlier with Mitch Marner, not figuring out where they stood conclusively with Mitch Marner. And if there was an inkling that he was going to be leaving this organization for a Nick Waugh trade, that they probably should have handled it better than basically giving him an ultimatum during what was the most successful season of Brad Treliving's tenure at a trade deadline, asking him to move a full no-move clause that pretty much anybody within, what's it, 5 degrees of separation, 3 degrees of separation of Mitch Marner knew that he wasn't going to waive. So again, Brad Treliving definitely owns his fair share of the blame pie here. What I will say is there is a little bit of recency bias involved in this where we are looking at the things that just came as the latest thing, right? We're looking at it and going, well, this was Brad's fault. And like, I've seen some people celebrating this firing. I've seen some people doing like, wow, Brad's gone. The organization can finally move on. Like, this is huge. This hasn't been just a 2-year problem with Brad Treliving or a 1-year problem with Brad Treliving, depending on how you look at it. Like, again, people will criticize the Berube hire because it hasn't worked out this year. Last year, the Leafs had arguably their most successful season during the Austin Matthews era. That was with Craig Berube. Coaches get missed all the time. Like, since 23-24, we have 8 coaches in the NHL right now who are still with the teams that they were with then. So, yeah, I don't look at that one as like some kind of a major failure. That was something that was actually very popular and very well received with the fan base, where it was thought like, hey, they really needed a strong voice in here. I thought that they needed a strong voice in there. Someone who had won a Stanley Cup, who had that pedigree, somebody who had pelts on the wall, someone who had a respected tenure as a player. So there was reason to believe that that thing was going to work. It ended up backfiring. And I think part of the reason it ended up backfiring is that Brad Treliving was kind of on an island. They were positioning Craig Berube as like some kind of a de facto down the line AGM with this organization because they didn't have enough at the top. And to me, that's the lesson in all of this. It's not like we can go through, and we've done this a million shows, and we're going to do it forever and ever and ever in sports bars and radio shows and podcasts and books, whatever. We're going to try to assign the blame pie. Hey, where did it all go wrong? Was it during Lou Lamoriello's tenure? Was it a power struggle between Brendan Shanahan and Kyle Dubas? Was it Kyle Dubas not knowing enough on the job to begin with? Was it Brendan Shanahan hiring the wrong guy? Was it them not moving off of the core four and not having more conviction to do? Like, this has been done to death. The question today is, are the Leafs up top, like the people that are going to control this next decision, did they learn from this at all? Have they taken things from this experience and realized this is a pretty big job? This is a monumental position in sports, and it probably shouldn't just land with one general manager and no president. When did you feel most secure in the Leafs' future? It was probably when they had a massive brain trust, right? Where they had Brendan Shanahan, they had Lou Lamoriello, they had Hunter, they had Kyle Dubas, they had a coach that was the head of Team Canada. That's probably when you looked at it and said, man, this is kind of shaping up to be something different, right? I think that's kind of the model that they're going to need to get back to here. They need to be bringing in not just one hockey mind. This shouldn't be funneled through one person's vision anymore. In fact, this needs to be looked at holistically now, because the Maple Leafs are no longer in a position where they get to do things like, hey, well, this is about finding out who has the best vision for getting them back into the playoffs this next season. That's done. That has to be done. That can no longer continue with these guys. The fans know it. Dogs know it. Your mom knows it. Everybody's aware that the Toronto Maple Leafs are not in a very good position right now. They're not likely to pick in this year's draft. Maybe they'll have their pick in next year's draft. Who knows? But you're talking about missing 2 of your first-round picks in the next 3 seasons. You're talking about Austin Matthews holding all the cards with his contract and only having really a year left on the deal. Really 1 year left on the deal before you're in it. You've got William Nylander, who has already crossed the age 30 mark and who has been here a long time. And there's certainly questions in terms of whether you're going to move on from him. There's the difficult conversation about Morgan Riley and what's going to happen with the offseason. You've obviously got to be able to sort out your own coach. There's too much to be done here for this organization to look at their candidates and say, hey, who's going to come in here with the best plan for us to make the playoffs next year? Can't do it. There shouldn't be any more, well, what does Austin Matthews think of this? There shouldn't be any more, we need to accommodate the stars. There shouldn't be any more tropes about talent is hard to come by in this league. Or any other thing that is essentially built around these players. This now has to be about the future of the Toronto Maple Leafs and what is best for the long-term vision of this organization. It's about building a brain trust again. It's about bringing in a very strong president and somebody with not just creativity, because I think that some of these words are getting kind of bandied around. And I tried yesterday on Leafs Talk to sort of give what my thoughts were on what this kind of person is. Like you're hearing people already say, like, is it going to be Doug Armstrong? Or I want Jim Nill. Like, okay, I also know some of the most respected hockey minds. I want to know that the Leafs are taking their time. They're evaluating as much as they can. They're going deep into the pocketbooks and realizing that this is a real hinge point with the franchise and saying, who do we think is going to be best to start to hire other people around this person that will give him a wide range of ways that this team can improve and get better and make sure that it actually is something that fans can believe in. Not just, hey, we're trying to get back to the playoffs and we want to satiate Austin Matthews and make sure that he signs his next contract extension. Frankly, I don't think very many people care about that anymore. Would it be nice if Austin Matthews retires a Maple Leaf and the Leafs get back to their winning ways and Chris Tanev gets healthy and the goaltending duo and they make a bunch of miracle moves in the offseason that just pan out spectacularly well? Of course it would. But that cannot be the focus of this organization anymore. They've got to stop doing it from the bottom down. They've got to stop doing it out of desperation, which is what I think it has been these last, 5-6 years? How many years of the Dubas tenure were we doing last dance talk? Then it became Brendan Shanahan, scrambling, trying to get his ducks in a row, make sure that he had all the right soldiers in the organization, telling the core four that they were all here to stay, hiring Brad Treliving. With what mandate? Win a Stanley Cup. We got to win a cup right now. This is the window. This is the window. This is the window. That window has closed. A new window is opening. And that window is a very uncertain future. And for the Leafs to enter that with any measure of confidence it is going to require not just one savior. We've got to stop doing the one savior thing. This is going to require the building of a brain trust that everybody in the hockey world looks at, reveres, respects, and thinks, you know what? They're going to be stable now, and they're going to be stable 5 years from now. James Mirtle of The Athletic, he joins me now. What's up, Jamesy? How are we doing?
Good, good. Not a lot of sleep, but you know what? It's a big day.
Yeah.
So much for our conversation on the weekend about not needing to have a show and there being nothing to talk about.
Yeah, we didn't plan on it because, again, the Leafs were complete. I do resent them a little bit for dumping this on a Monday evening before a West Coast game that we could have used this content probably a week ago. But okay, let's just start with that. Why now? And did Treliving force this rather than the Maple Leafs forcing this?
Yeah, I think so. I think this has been in the works for a while.
Mhm.
I think Keith Pelly came to this decision. I don't know the exact date, but I think it's been a while. I had to go through the ownership and the board and decide when they were going to do it. And once Treliving found out, he was ready for it just to happen as opposed to wait till the end of the season. So I was told there was some discussion about waiting till the end of the year from the top. So maybe that was initially the plan, and then they just realized that wasn't going to be tenable. The Leafs are on the road. Brad Treliving's not there. People are asking questions about why he's not there. People are asking questions about why he's not around the offices at MLSE. It was going to get out. So that's why the timing was messy the way that it was. But, you know, right before the eighth last game of the season doesn't make a whole lot of sense if you think about it. I mean, they should have just done it before the trade deadline and come up with some sort of plan for someone in an interim role, what they were going to try and accomplish at the deadline. Because what was the point in having Brad Treliving go through that exercise? That was what Keith Pelly needed to see before deciding if he was going to fire him or not. And that trade deadline was, let's say, underwhelming at best.
Yeah, the trade deadline didn't move anybody in a certain way. It started off with the Nick Waugh deal that on paper it's a first round pick. And even though it's next year and even though it's Colorado, I thought people were like mostly pretty enthusiastic about that, considering what Nick Waugh is and just the fact that it ended up getting done earlier. But yeah, Bobby McMahon going for a second and a fourth, I think. Scott Lawton being turned from a first round pick into a third round pick. Some names like Oliver Ekman-Larsson not moving. It was it was underwhelming, I would say, to say the least. That's actually probably one of my biggest concerns is that, okay, so we can go back and play the game of like, why was Brad Treliving allowed to run the trade deadline? But then it's like, well, who else would have been running it? Like, who else is going to be in that interim spot that was better positioned? And that's part of the issue that I think the Maple Leafs are facing right now in terms of the way that they structure this moving forward is they need to have more hockey people that are in place to better facilitate these kind of moves so that it isn't just on one person's shoulders, right? Like it isn't just one person end up making these decisions. And so I understand why fans are frustrated when they hear something like the guy that just got fired like less than a month after the trade deadline was the guy that ran the trade deadline. My only pushback would have been, well, who the hell else would have ran it?
Well, I think that anyone that you think maybe has a future in the organization would make sense. But you're right. I mean, they should have started this president search last year. They
Mm-hmm.
should have replaced Brendan Shanahan because they don't have the people in the organization who can take over. You're right. It's there's a void there that I don't think's been talked about under Brad Treliving as well and above him. There's not enough smart hockey people. They have six assistant GMs, but they don't have anyone that can step in and run a trade deadline.
Yeah.
That's an indictment of the staff that you've got in place. What they have more people in their front office than any team in the league, but fewer people that can do the job you need them to do. There needs to be a big house cleaning, and there's going to be. I mean, this isn't going to be the only person that's let go. I fully assume that the people that were serving as the right hand men for Brad Treliving are going to be gone as well. We're just going to wait for those announcements to come probably at the end of the season. So, and whoever comes in is going to have to rebuild the front office as well because they kind of had this Frankenstein front office where it's a
That's
bunch
it.
of different regimes, people hired by Shanahan, people hired by Dubas, people hired by Treliving, trying to coexist and work together. And it hasn't been working. And they haven't been working together cohesively for a while now. And the word I keep coming back to, and I've been coming back to ever since Dubas was let go and Shanahan was a lame duck, is dysfunction. It's been a very dysfunctional organization. And how can the richest team in the league, with all the resources they have, all the staff that they have, how can it be so dysfunctional? How can no one at the top realize I think part of the answer to that is they had such a good season last year on the ice that I think it papered over.
Mm-hmm.
how messed up everything is in the organization because they were winning games last year. They won a lot of one goal games. They won a lot of games where they were outshot and outplayed. And there were people in the organization saying to me, it's like, I can't believe this is happening because it's going to result in basically the issues that are happening behind the scenes are not going to get fixed. And it was really a house of cards that got built. It reminds me a lot of, remember that lockout shortened season 2012-13? They
Of
fire
course.
Brian Burke before the season. They promote Dave Nonis. They go on this run that wasn't sustainable where they make the playoffs. They push Boston to 7 games. They didn't learn any of the right lessons about where the roster was at. They doubled down on that roster. They made some terrible moves, signed David Clarkson, and then that's when it all fell apart for them. And that's what last season kind of reminds me of is that they weren't a 108-point team. They were in the standings, but that wasn't sustainable. You lose Mitch Marner and it all falls apart on them. So now they got to really look at what they actually have and if there's what the path out of this actually is. And I think you and I are aligned that I don't think that there is a quick path out of this,
Mhm.
but can ownership see that? And can whoever they're going to hire, can they see that? And are they going to be willing to push back on trying to turn this around quickly? Because I just don't see a path for them to do that.
Well, this is where I do feel encouraged. By the way, I like that you asked me if I remember one of the most famous Toronto Maple Leafs seasons the
Well,
last week.
not you, the people that are listening,
Hey, do you remember when they blew the
the,
lead to Boston? Like, yeah, everybody
the
remembers that.
proverbial you
Yeah,
of like
yeah,
2012-13 was like, it's like Groundhog Day for me
yes.
watching this because,
I think it's a great
that was
analogy.
that one lone season where they made the playoffs
Mhm,
and it was a mirage. And
yep.
I'm not saying that they shouldn't have made the playoffs last year. I'm just saying a lot of what happened last year was a bit of a mirage. And Keith Pelly and Rogers were kind of hoodwinked into thinking everything's okay here. And from what I've been hearing the last 2.5, 3 years, there's a lot of things that haven't been okay.
Mhm.
There's a lot of things that aren't working behind the scenes. And this year was really all of that blowing up in their face. And they've got a lot of things to figure out now in a very short window.
Well, I think that part of why we know that things were not working out well within the organization is how many people were willing to be vocal about how things weren't working well within the
Yes.
organization.
I've
So,
I've never seen it like this. Like
right.
anytime something happens, your phone blows up and people are talking about what's going on and people are really frustrated in the organization about what's happened and about leadership and I would say a lack of leadership. So, you're right. It's not just on Brad Treliving. It goes higher than that because who's in charge? Who's making these decisions? Who's bringing Kyle Dubas in as a lame duck GM and then bringing Brendan Shanahan in as a lame duck president and then having Treliving twist in the wind all year this year. I was
Mhm.
being told in November that Treliving was worried about his job. It's a dysfunctional way to run an organization to have the GM feel like he's on the outs the entire season and not feel empowered to do his job. So it's just like you go down the list and it's just all of the decisions right at the very top have not been the right ones. And that puts you in the place they're at right now.
Well, James, they've had out of their last 5 seasons, 3 of them have involved lame duck years. 3 of them have involved complete desperation years. And you could probably add to that because there was probably 2 or 3 seasons of feeling like Kyle Dubas was very much on the hot seat with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like we had done, this is his last hurrah. Is this the last chance that he has to win over the organization or go deep in the postseason? Like they've just
Even
had,
Lamorello wasn't a lame duck year when I don't know if you're going back that far. Lamorello wasn't a lame duck year his last year because they
sure.
told him they only gave him a 3-year deal. They told him you're going to be 3 years and we're going to turn the keys over to Dubas.
Yep.
And he knew that he had to try and make some magic happen. And so this has been happening for a long time and they needed to stop it happening. And they need to bring someone in that's going to be here for a long time
That's it.
and really effectively change the culture.
Yes, I totally agree. And that's why I think that there is a need for a president in this organization is you need to have somebody who is not just looking at it through the lens of I'm trying to get things done and accomplished for 1 year. And that has to be the lesson of this is that all of those lame duck years that they've had where there has been the desperation and they've made those desperate kind of moves that were made under Dubas, that were made under Brendan Shanahan, that were made with Brad Treliving, having 3 lame duck years in the last 5, that you can't bring someone in here and have them basically positioned where their move is pitch the Toronto Maple Leafs on how you get back into the playoffs next year rather than what do you think is the right version of this team for the next 10. And that's where I feel somewhat encouraged because we can be critical of up top all we want, and there's good reasons to be. But ultimately, if you're going to canvass the league, if you're going to have multiple smart hockey people sit down in a room and tell the Toronto Maple Leafs what their vision is, I don't think the majority of them are going to sit in there and paint them some kind of a pretty picture. I don't think that the majority of them are going to say, well, if we get Chris Tanev back next year and we get a healthy Austin Matthews and engaged William Nylander and a couple of free agent signings, we could be right back to where that team was 2 years ago that you're talking about was a house of cards. Like, that doesn't feel at all realistic to me. And so that begs the question, which is, so part of this in terms of Treliving not feeling like his job was secure is that it sort of feels like people are saying that they were already starting to do their canvassing in terms of their preparation for what was going to come next, which I think is somewhat encouraging, right? Because it's uncomfortable for Treliving. Maybe it's not the most ethical piece of business in the world, but is your understanding that Pelly and MLSE are already starting to check in on situations before firing him?
I don't know that for sure, but I'm sure that they're trying to back channel some of that stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that Doug Armstrong is who they want, to jump ahead of your question. I think that I don't, it's unclear his contractual situation and getting out of St. Louis. He's supposed to transition into a president's role there. Ownership there has talked a lot to Jeremy Rutherford, who covers the Blues for us, and said he's not leaving and he's staying here. So we'll see how that plays out. But I don't know if the wider search that you're talking about, I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I wonder if it's going to be identifying one or two people and going after the biggest targets possible and throwing a Brinks truck at them and turning the keys over to them. And I also think that one of the things that Keith Pelly has to dangle here is he can make that person a president and GM. So my guess is that you're probably going to get someone in a dual role because that's going to be part of the carrot that you're serving up to bring them in.
Mm-hmm.
It does sound like, talking to people around the league yesterday, that there's going to be a lot of people that are interested in this position. I just don't know how wide the search is going to be, and that feels like a mistake because while time is tight and you need to get someone in quickly, I think Rogers needs to make sure that they get the right person in here.
I agree. And I would say that to expand on while time is tight, of course people are interested in this job. Like, disregard the picks and disregard the dysfunction. You still should be in a position where you can pay an executive more than anybody else in hockey. You should still be in a position where you're empowering them to spend more on a staff than anybody else in hockey. You're still supposed to have more resources than anybody else in hockey. And you're also the front man for a franchise that matters. We know that this operates this way. Like, we learned this through, how many sports have we learned this through? Like, we got this with Theo, where it was, hey, you win with the Red Sox, it's going to matter a hell of a lot more. Hey, you win with the Chicago Cubs, it's going to matter a hell of a lot more. People are going to remember who you are. There is a legacy play with this that is dramatically different than, I would say, pretty much any other job in hockey at this point. Like, maybe you could make the case for Montreal as well, but no, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. Like, this is the organization that is most desperate to win a Stanley Cup. This should be the most coveted job in the NHL. And to your point about, I like, honestly, I'm a little nervous if it's just funneled towards Doug Armstrong, because who wouldn't respect him, right? Who wouldn't be happy if he ends up being the guy? But ultimately, I think that you should be interviewing people. You should be basically canvassing as many people as possible, listening to who has the most creative vision, listening to somebody that has conviction, but also some flexibility, who has ideas of how they're going to build out their staff, and the approach that you like the best as a group being the guy that you end up giving the job to, not just automatically making it someone based on their past resume.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. But I think that they're feeling the pressure with how sideways this has gone and the tight timeline. I mean, it's April tomorrow.
Mm.
A lot of things are going to start happening fast. They're going to have to start, if they have a draft pick, they're going to have to start scouting for that draft pick. They're going to have to start putting things in place. And, I think Rogers, MLSE feel pretty naked right now without having anyone at the top of the organization. And the people who are at the top of the organization, they're going to fire more of them.
Mm-hmm.
So there's effectively no one in charge. They're going to need to make this decision and make it all happen within 3 or 4 weeks. And the contractual situation of the people that they want is up in the air. Some of those people's teams are going to be in the playoffs if they potentially want them. That's going to complicate things. And again, the lack of foresight and the lack of planning could potentially hold them back. And you also have, there's been this ownership transition that's happening with MLSE too. And there's a lot of complicating factors. So my guess is that Keith Pelly is going to identify, as I said, one or two people, maybe three, and go after big fish and try and make it happen as quickly as he can.
So then you don't get the impression that this is going to be handled through a firm?
Again, I don't know that for sure. I think that would make sense,
Mm.
especially given the way some of the other hires have gone recently. I think bringing someone in to make that happen. Um, is that I don't know, like, is that customary around the league that you would use a firm to do it?
I would think that it would be more customary when you don't have any type of structure in place from a front office standpoint that you can rely upon.
Yeah.
Like
No, I
there's
mean,
no hockey person that's in place. Like I've seen all these people messaging me going like they should promote Brandon Pridham to GM. And I'm like, what is causing you to believe that this would be the case? Like that this would be the move for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Like that what
it's not gonna
he's going
it's
to
not
be
gonna
conducting
happen.
the search?
Yeah.
Like I don't think that that's the way to be doing this. And of course there's advisors that Pelly can lean on and I'm like again, I'm sure he's a very smart guy who has ideas of his own, but the idea that he's going to be able to just do this on the fly and figure out who the right person is for this job on his own, that feels like too great of a task for just about anybody. So that's why I think that in this particular situation, I can't tell you with all the different GM hirings around the league, like how they came to the decision they did. I don't think that it's necessarily customary, but in this situation, it sure feels like you would want to have some sort of paid advisors who have equity in this and who also have like a deeper knowledge base of what they're looking at.
I think back to when they hired Brendan Shanahan, like, what was the process there? He
Can't
was
remember.
working for the league. I believe that the process was that MLSE was talking to the league about,
Hmm.
potential candidates who they could bring in as a president. Because again, in the wake of what happened in that Nonis year and everything fell apart after that, and Horacek, and it was, I mean, it was a mess basically. And they settled on Shanahan. And I sometimes the league office and sometimes Bettman has input into what happens.
Hmm.
So I mean,
That
that could
happens in
be
all
someone that
leagues.
and part of it is going to be if you're going after someone who's under contract with another team and it's a sticky situation, you almost need a mediator to kind of figure out, if someone wants to leave, you're gonna have to figure out if how that happens,
Hmm.
and if their team lets them leave, and sometimes those situations can be messy. If the Leafs want Julian Breezebois from Tampa and his team's in the playoffs and the Lightning don't want to let him leave and he's under contract, can you even hire some of these people?
Hmm.
The two names that make the most sense to me would be Doug Armstrong, because they've already decided they're pushing him out of the GM role and kind of moving him upstairs and out of the day-to-day decision making. So he could argue that it's a promotion for him to come to Toronto, given that he'll still be the GM again.
Hmm.
And the other person that potentially I think makes sense to me is Jim Nill. And there's been a lot of talk about him in Dallas being in the last year of his contract. So maybe that's something that could make sense. And I could see in a Jim Nill situation that perhaps he comes in only as a president and hires a GM. And maybe that's someone that he's going to kind of tutor and build up. And I could see that potentially making sense.
That's the situation that I think makes the most sense. And I'm not saying necessarily either of those two names, but I'm saying bring in someone who is the de facto president GM, who has roster making capabilities, much like the Raptors ended up having with Masai Ujiri, much like the Blue Jays have with Mark Shapiro. Like Mark Shapiro has done a great job of making it sort of seem as though he's not the day-to-day baseball operations guy, but he absolutely has input on the organization and he should. Like again, he's a smart baseball man with a long career. Have someone who can identify the other person that's supposed to be the GM. Because like this should also be added with a guy like Doug Armstrong. I think he turns 62 this year. Like
Yes.
you got to be realistic about this stuff. You've got to be putting someone in a position who has the bones, who has the structure, who has had the success, who understands the league, who has the relationships, who understands basically the ins and outs of this kind of a job, the weight of this job, because you can't afford another situation where it's someone who's stepping into this and they don't have any idea about what they're doing. That doesn't have these types of experiences because again, this job is so important right now. But also there should be, in my opinion, the hiring of a president, someone who is older like that, someone who is tenured like that, but with the thought in mind that they are going to groom someone, that they are going to basically build in a younger, different outlook type of general manager that they believe in is going to be stable with this team as well for the next decade plus.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, the number one criteria for me would be what's the vision for whoever this person
Of
is,
course.
and are they willing to entertain the idea of a rebuild? Because what you don't want to have is a Brian Burke situation where it's someone who's won before, who's been in the league a long time, who has a level of hubris that doesn't want to take a step back and doesn't want to go through a rebuild. And you talk to people around the league, and there's a lot of talk about this retool on the fly and look at what Washington did and look at what Boston's trying to do and get back to the playoffs. And, you know, there's a lot of fear about ending up in a Detroit situation where, it's 7 years in the wilderness
Of
for Steve
course.
Yzerman, and it doesn't look like that they're going to make it again. So my concern with a Doug Armstrong would be he comes in and doesn't want to take the 2 steps back that you need to take 3 steps forward.
Mm.
And that needs to be coming from the top, that they mandate that if what they really need to do is pull this apart and build through the draft without some of their first round picks, they're going to need someone that has the stones to do that and to say to ownership that this is the right way to go. That's one of the reasons Montreal's been able to turn it around so well and so quickly, is that they had that vision from Gorton and Kent Hughes going in there. It was clear to them that they couldn't, coast on the fumes of what that team that they had that went to the final that one year during COVID. They had to try and do something different and start again. And that would be my biggest concern with whoever comes in here and with what ownership's thinking,
Mm.
is that they're not willing to make the hard decision, which is that this window is over.
Okay, but don't you feel at least that the likelihood of them giving that playoff, let's get back there mandate, hey, this is a quick turnaround, not a long turnaround, that some of that hardline positioning has at least softened given just the way that all of this has transpired?
A little bit. Yes. A
It would
little bit.
have to. Like
But
you
it's just maybe you just have PTSD from covering this team for nearly 20 years and
okay.
seeing them bungle this so many ways. But I feel like the biggest way they could bungle this is that whoever comes in says we can turn this around quickly. We want to keep Austin Matthews. We want to keep William Nylander. We have good goalies. Try and sign a couple, give Darren Radish a huge contract and try and sign some older free agents. And like I said, with Montreal, coast on the fumes of what they were last season. But I don't see a path for them to do that. So if that's the direction that they go down, I think it's going to be an ugly future. And I think that this next regime is not going to be successful. So
Uh,
we'll see what they decide. But I mean, it hasn't been very long since we knew that they were going to change this. It's hard to get a read out of what ownership is thinking here. But in talking to people last night, you're right. The window is cracked a little bit, that there might be some realization that there's no easy fix for this.
I just
And we'll see if the person they bring in is willing to embrace that. Because if you're 62-year-old Doug Armstrong and you've been a GM in the league for nearly 20 years, are you willing to go through what might be a 4 or 5 year process to get to where you need to go?
You have to. Otherwise, you shouldn't be taking this job. That's the point I'm making, is that you should have a vision, but it cannot, the vision that you have cannot just be quick fixes and stopgaps and desperation. And this is about a 1 year plan, not a multi year plan. That's the point I've been trying to illustrate all along. And that's the point that they should be basically trying to learn from, again, from having 3 lame duck seasons in the past 5 years and getting into this point. The reason why I'm more optimistic about the hardline stance on, hey, we can still make this thing work next year is like, okay, you've not only got to hire a president slash GM, someone who's maybe doing that dual role, but then it's kind of like the Dubas situation when he went to Pittsburgh. Like, yes, I'm the president GM, but ultimately I'm going to land in a president's job. And if you are Doug Armstrong, you should be thinking like, hey man, I've still got a decade left in my career. That's the way that I would be thinking about it if I was him. How do I want to win over that decade rather than what can I do over the next 3 seasons? So to me, it does still have to be a more holistic look. The issue I have in terms of the hardline stuff is that Gudis moment to me resonated so deeply throughout all of hockey, where everyone was basically on the same page with the same idea, that it really did feel like a death knell for that core and the idea that this thing had been working. That it wasn't just, hey, it's dysfunctional up top, like you're talking about. Hey, it's dysfunctional with the front office. Hey, it's dysfunctional with the people that are below Brad Treliving, with the Frankenstein group, but that the actual product on the ice has now reached a point where there is really no coming back from this. There really is no, we can turn this thing around. They've had multiple coaches. They've also done this thing where a lot of these front offices have built around these particular players. And I know Mitch Marner's gone, and I know people are ready to, have Morgan Riley be moved out in a trade. But it started with we can and we will. Then it became Brendan Shanahan calling players and making sure that they all knew that they were going to be safe during the Dubas exit. Then it became Brad Treliving coming in here and talking about how, what was it? It was like, it's hard to find talent in this league, right? He was coming off of the Matthew Tkachuk move, the disasters that had basically happened in Calgary in terms of either free agents
Sam
leaving.
Bennett.
Sam Bennett, exactly, right? So you had a guy in a position where he was not willing to probably move off of talent the way that maybe some other general managers would. And that's why it's like, I've seen some people questioning, hey, like, is Austin Matthews going to have input in this? Or like, how much of this is about the Austin Matthews question? And to me, it's like, none of that stuff should, of course it matters because those are your most important players in the organization. Those are your most important pieces in terms of fetching things back. But the last thing I ever want to hear is a report that Austin Matthews will be weighing in on who the next front office person is, or the Leafs are checking in with Austin Matthews as to what he feels about this person or that person. Like, I don't want to have any more catering to this group of players and helping them shape the long-term vision of this organization. Like, I just think that part of it has to go.
Well, and I mean, I think realistically too, if you're Austin Matthews, would you rather someone lie to you and say, we can do this quickly and we can do this within the term of your contract or within the next year? Or what if they go to Austin Matthews and say, you're the captain, we'd like you here. This is going to take some time and we're going to have to pull some things apart. We might have to take a step back. We might have to draft high 1 or 2 years, and you need to decide if you want to be part of that or not. But that's the reality of where we're at right now.
That should be it.
That should be the real conversation that they have with him. And then it's up to him to decide whether he wants to be part of that or not. The Pittsburgh example is pretty interesting because I don't think anyone thought that they could turn it around with Crosby and Malkin and Letang and Carlson there, but they have, and they won again last night. It looks like they're going to make the playoffs. I guess part of the question is what's their ceiling there? But there may be a world where you can keep 1 or 2 of your standard bearers, whoever you decide those people are, and still build around them. You still want to have some culture setters in the organization. Maybe you don't want the particular ones you have in this organization right now, but maybe there's a world where you can keep an Austin Matthews, you can take a step back, and he does stay. I don't know. It doesn't feel likely, but at least you're having a real conversation instead of lying to a star player to try and get them to stay to pursue a path that doesn't make any sense.
For me personally, I don't really see a scenario where it makes sense to keep either Austin Matthews or William Nylander. I just don't. Like my personal belief, and I don't think it's shared by, I would say, the majority, because I still think that most people would like to see at least one of those guys returning, or hope that this thing can end up working out with one of them for the long-term future. But to me, it's like you really are in a position where it feels closer to a teardown than it does, hey, you can build around the fringes of this thing. You don't want to be too overly, or you don't want to be too over the top with this. But ultimately, yeah, given their contractual status, given their ages, and the fact that Toronto doesn't own their picks for these next 2 drafts, it's really, really hard for me to see. But I wouldn't say you have to ultimately go in there with that being the plan. Like, you're just automatically getting rid of Austin Matthews. Again, to your point, that's the way that I'd be looking at this, is you're open-minded, but you have a vision. So you can still try and keep Austin Matthews if you want, if he's willing to sign a long-term contract, but with the knowledge that he's bought into something different.
I think the reality too is that you probably need to move off of them to get the assets back to start building up the other direction, right? Like, you don't have a lot to trade. And if Nylander and Matthews end up on the trade market, on the table within the next 18 months, their value is still high enough that you should be able to get some really good assets back. So that's what feels like makes the most sense. I just, like I said, and maybe it's because I've been around so long and I've seen this get screwed up so many different ways. I'll believe it when I see it, when they decide to go in that direction. But I do think that they're contemplating what needs to happen next. And I think I mean, what should happen is whoever they hire should decide the direction that they go, right? Like you
Mhm.
don't want ownership deciding that we need to rebuild because they're not, that's not their expertise. That's not Keith Pelly's expertise, how to rebuild a hockey team or how to get this team back to where it can be a contender. So you have to hope that whoever they hire has the right mindset. And like I said, is bold enough to tell ownership that this is the way that it needs to go.
Mhm.
And they can't go into that hiring process saying we need to keep Austin Matthews or we need to win by X date, or it's almost back to the line that Mike Babcock had way back when, is that there's going to be pain.
Mhm.
There's going to be pain regardless here. There's going to be pain if you try and turn it around quickly. There's going to be pain if you pull it apart. The question is, do you want to have productive pain or do you want to just have more of the pain that's not going to get you where you want to go?
Well,
And the other thing too is that the goal can't be just getting back to the playoffs.
of
The
course.
goal has to be being a contending franchise, becoming like the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Colorado Avalanche, where you're a legitimate threat in the playoffs every year.
Yep.
And to do that on the fly is, I think it's completely impossible. And someone like Doug Armstrong or Jim Nill or whoever they get in here, they have to know it's impossible too.
I think they will. And again, that's why I really don't think that they should be going into this search with parameters like the ones that you outlined, where it's, hey, we want to know what you think is best for this organization, not, hey, what do you think can happen for us to turn this around in 3 years? And honestly, the one thing I'll say too is the fan base deserves credit in this situation. And from the standpoint of it's a smart group of fans that are very plugged in with this team. Like people love chastising Leaf fans. They love chastising them for blue and white goggles. They love crushing them for supporting the team for all these years and being complicit in these failures because they do buy tickets and they do buy merchandise and they do watch these games. But ultimately, and we saw this when they tried to do it in the first place, where Babcock was saying there will be pain. Leaf fans didn't run away and hide from the potential of a rebuild. Yes, it turned around way quicker than they anticipated, but I don't know why there is conclusive belief to say, yeah, that can't happen again. I know they don't have their draft picks, but the idea that they couldn't have a quicker rebuild and hit on some prospects with the right group at the top, like that's happened before. That can happen again. Again, did happen in Pittsburgh, but the fan base was fully prepared for that rebuild. They'd been clamoring for it for years. They wanted years where the team was going to be young and trying to improve and get better, and it just so happened that they were unbelievable right away out of the gate. And those prospects ended up turning into legitimate NHL superstars overnight. Like, I think that it's more long-term damaging to the brand and to the business if they are to bring back Matthews and Nylander and try to taper around the fringes and sell people on the idea that they're going to get back to the playoffs. No one's going to be invested in that group. They're not. No one's going to show up. I shouldn't say no one. There's still going to be fans in the seats. There's still going to be viewership for some of the games. But there's going to be another year of disconnecting from the hardcore fans, the people that are the biggest supporters of this team. If you sell them on an authentic vision, something that actually is forward thinking, but it comes with a lot of losses and 1 down year or 2 down years or 3 down years of no playoff revenue, I really do believe that from the long-term aspect of this group making money, that it makes more sense for them to go into something that at least keeps people engaged and not have them feel like they're boxed out, voiceless, and ill-prepared for the future.
Yeah. The fan base is ready to turn the page on this group.
Right.
The fan base is ready for the, I can't remember how you put it last night on Leafs Talk because it was the middle of the night, but they're ready for the next era of this franchise. This one is over. This contention window is over. It's not going to happen. So they need someone at the top to realize that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you can just do the thought experiment of what if they win the lottery this year? What if they get Gavin McKenna? Think about what that would do in the fan base. Think about how that's going to energize the market. People are going to be way more excited about something like that,
Of course,
than anything else you can accomplish. And while that seems far-fetched because their chances of winning the lottery right now are what, 15% or probably less than that because they keep winning games.
mm-hmm.
It's not far-fetched if they do the right things and they start pulling the roster apart. The pick next year is top 10 protected. So if they start pulling the roster apart, they're going to have that pick. You know, and whether that's a first overall pick or fifth overall or sixth overall, you're going to get a good young player.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a good front office in place and you feel good about your scouting staff and you feel good about the vision, you're going to get a player that's going to play in your lineup pretty quickly. You know, Ben Kindle, who the Penguins took 7th overall last year, has been playing every game for that team and playing really well and looks fantastic. So you can do that. The Leafs can do that next year. It's not like it's not far-fetched that they can start getting some young talent in here and start taking some bets on reclamation projects and getting younger and turning over the blue line and bringing in players. And I mean, again, I hate to keep going back to Pittsburgh because obviously that's a sensitive spot for Leafs fans. But they bring in. You look at how they rebuilt the blue line there. They bring in Parker Witherspoon, who's not a household name, but I was told there were other teams that really wanted him. But the reason he went to Pittsburgh was the opportunity. He's been playing in the top pair role, and he's been fantastic for them.
Mm-hmm.
So the Leafs they can offer opportunity. They obviously have financial largesse. They've got tons of cap space, especially if they move off some of their top players. They're going to be able to bring in some interesting players and try and find some players. And I think the fan base is going to be way more excited about watching that process with some good young players that they've drafted than any other kind of vision you can outline for them.
I don't even think it's close. Like, I don't even think it's like if you polled that today, that the outcome would be like even 30% of the fan base buying into the opposite version of that, which is like, yeah, keep getting older, keep getting slower, keep trying to triple, quadruple, quintuple down on the same old vision. Anyways, last thing before you go. So it's hard not to think about Berube in this because Treliving gets fired, he's gone, or they part ways, however the way that they massage it. Berube obviously knows the writing's on the wall for him. No one's going to come in here and say that he should stay around as the coach, although it did happen with Sheldon Keefe, but it's very, very difficult to envision that this happens in this scenario. Do you think that this expedites the timeline for him at all? Because I would be thinking if I'm him, I would be saying the same stuff that Treliving did in order for them to part ways.
I mean, it almost feels like he has been saying some of that stuff already.
Right.
So there's 7 games left. They've waited this long. There's no GM. Keith Pelly, this is another thing that's been dysfunctional is that we've been hearing, and I think you alluded to it, that Keith Pelly has felt closer and more aligned with Craig Berube than Brad Treliving since he came in, which is weird. And Craig Berube's had more term on his contract than Treliving as well. So I think they play this out, and it's going to be, day after the season or 2 days after the season that Craig Berube gets let go. They're probably going to want some sort of exit interview process that happens with the players. I don't know who's going to conduct that. I can't imagine that. That's one of the questions I got yesterday is that who's going to be talking to the players about what's going on at the end of the season? And there's not a good answer for that. So do they have Berube be part of that, even though he's about to go? I don't think that makes sense either.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's messy. I don't know what they're going to do, but the players have a lot of questions right now. They were pretty shaken up when they found out right before the game that the GM had been fired. And there's a whole bunch more seismic activity that's going to happen. I mean, 7 games left, 2.5 weeks left, and there's going to be a whole lot of news coming. And I don't expect that it's going to take that long for them to decide who's coming in here and who's taking over. And that person's going to have to act decisively and lay out a vision pretty quickly and start acting on that.
So I think you said this. You think that person's in place within the next month?
I would say, yeah. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's 5 weeks or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the only hangup could be if they're trying to hire someone whose team is active in the playoffs and they need to wait a little bit. But I don't know. Like, there's so much to be done that they can't afford to wait into June. They just can't. They can't have this zombie front office without a head on it deciding things because they don't have anyone that can lead that group.
Encouraging. James Mirtle, thanks as always, buddy. Well, at least we've got stuff to talk about for the next couple of weeks rather than just the death march to the non-tank and what's probably going to end up being Boston picking, I think, 8th overall. That's going to be my projection. James Mirtle, thanks for making time. We'll talk to you next week, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, JD.
Again, there is a news conference today. It's Keith Pelly speaking. It's going to be live on an extended fan hockey show with Cuthbert and Feuda at 2 p.m. It's going to be on Sportsnet 590, Sportsnet 360, Sportsnet Plus, and streaming on sportsnet.ca. Ooh, we got Ben Nicholson-Smith coming up later in the show. Blue Jays got absolutely tattooed last night. Ugly one. Cody Ponce hurt. Really disappointing. Really, really, tough to see a guy who's been working to get back for this dream for a long time get hurt. Okay, but quick break. I want to just mention one quick thing on Shai, and then we'll get into the Blue Jays with Ben Nicholson-Smith. That's next.
All-you-can-eat dripping chicken sandwiches at St. Louis Bar and Grill. We challenge you to beat the record for most sandwiches in a single sitting.
What's the record?
2. The record is 2, but we believe in you. All you can eat dripping chicken sandwiches for just $18.99 at St. Louis Bar and Grill. Dine in only.
In Canada, the leading cause of death is cancer. What if you could see it coming before symptoms appear? Whole Body MRI offers advanced medical scans using our state-of-the-art AI-powered MRI machines, which can detect early-stage cancers and 500 other conditions with zero radiation. Take control of your health. Visit wholebodymri.ca to book now. Again, that's wholebodymri.ca. Get scanned.
Breaking Lotto Max Dream News. With Tuesday's Lotto Max jackpot at an estimated $65 million, plus an estimated 8 Max Millions. Maxed out dreams are rapidly popping up across the country, turning pools into lakefront cottages, boats into super yachts, decks into rooftop spas. It's dreaming like we've never dreamed before. Tuesday's Lotto Max jackpot is an estimated $65 million, plus an estimated 8 Max Millions. Why dream to the min when you can dream to the max?
This week at Real Canadian Superstore, get 1 pound of Lactancia butter for only $5 each. Plus, get it delivered with your first year of PC Express Pass at just $2.50 per month. Conditions apply. See flyer for details at superstore.ca/flyer.
Meet iPhone 17e. A whole lot for a lot less. With an almighty all-powerful A19 chip. And Ceramic Shield 2, built to survive this. And this. And a 48-megapixel fusion camera with 2 times optical quality zoom. And double the starting storage of iPhone 16e. And long-lasting battery life for hours of watching the studio. That's the dream! And it comes with Apple Intelligence. And you can charge it with USB-C or with MagSafe accessories. And a whole lot more. All for a lot less. Get the new iPhone 17e at Rogers today. Battery life varies by use. Pricing compared to iPhone 17.
Lone Star's new 3 Amigo meals. For $14.99, you get chips and salsa. Our new double-stacked Big Smash Burger with fries and unlimited pop. And why not enjoy a 16-ounce Texas Gold Lager for only $4.99?
Hold up. Did you say chips, salsa, the Big Smash Burger and fries, and unlimited pop for $14.99? Plus a Texas Gold Lager for $4.99? Oh, someone's getting fired for this.
New 3 Amigo meals for $14.99. Monday to Friday, 11 to 3, only at Lone Star.
University Health Network right here in Toronto has been named the #2 hospital in the world, and for the 8th year in a row, #1 in Canada. Hi, I'm Kevin Smith, President and CEO of UHN. Together, with your support, we're turning discovery into breakthroughs and breakthroughs into better outcomes for patients. All of us, united, are creating the best care for our community and our future. We're deeply grateful for your support. Find out more at uhnfoundation.ca.
Spring is just around the corner, and that means Chevrolet's Truck Month is back. For a limited time, get $6,000 in total cash purchase discounts on the 2026 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 Custom Trail Boss, Canada's most affordable 2-inch factory-lifted V8 truck. With Silverado's off-road capability combined with its powerful 5.3-liter V8 engine, you'll be ready to take on whatever lies ahead. Hurry in, Truck Month won't last long. Visit your local Chevrolet dealer for details.
My husband is a light sleeper, and before Sleep Country's Sleep Easy event, I was playing silent hopscotch on my creaky floors just to use the washroom without disturbing him. But now that we've gone to Sleep Country and found an amazingly comfortable bed that fits all our needs, there's nothing that can wake him up. Not even that extra loud loose floorboard by the door. Sleep without interruption. Hurry into Sleep Country and get up to 20% off mattresses, sheets, duvets, and more. Only for a limited time. Restrictions apply. Speak to a sleep expert for more details.
Let's flip a coin. Heads, you grow your business. Tails, you earn on your cash. Most banks make you pick a side. Float says, be all in. With Float, eligible Canadian businesses get up to $3 million in flexible, interest-free credit to keep building, all while their idle cash earns up to 4% interest in Float. Spend on credit and earn on balances. Heads and tails. Being all in means giving your business both. Learn how Float is all in on Canada at floatfinancial.com.
Did you know the plasma in your blood is used to create medications that boost the immune system of people fighting cancer? Advancements in clinical care have led to new life-saving uses for plasma, and with that, a new need for donors. Canada needs more blood and plasma donors than ever before, because we're saving more lives than ever before.
Help Canada reach 1 million new donors by 2030. Book an appointment today at blood.ca/plasma and experience what you get when you give. Canadian Blood Services. Who's saving who?
Hey, it's Nick Kiprios.
And I'm Justin Bourne.
We're diving deep into everything happening in Leafland and the biggest stories around the NHL.
Real Kipper and Bourne, weekdays from 4 to 6 on Sportsnet, Sportsnet 590 The Fan, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
So quickly, before we chat Jays with my buddy BNS, figure out what's up with Ponce and what they're going to do with Little. Last night, the Detroit Pistons played the Oklahoma City Thunder. The game went to overtime, and there was a buzzer beater that was called off for a foul. And the buzzer beater that was called off was because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the Canadian, who I believe is pretty much a lock to be MVP again this season, back-to-back MVP, he pushed off in order to get his shot. And he looked completely stunned by the decision. I think it was a great call. Not because I'm a Thunder hater, but just because, it was the right call. If you watch the replay, it's a clear push off. It does happen in the NBA. It doesn't always get called. It's kind of, some would say maybe a little ticky-tack in that moment. I think he gets a lot of separation. But I think that this is curious from this standpoint, which is the noise on the Thunder and the officiating has gotten so loud that it's like drowning out a guy's back-to-back MVP season. We're seeing this now with multiple coaches. I was talking about this with Armin yesterday in the DMs, and maybe he and I will expand on this later in the show today. But it really, I can't remember a star like this who doesn't feel at all appreciated for the good things that he does in the game. And the narrative is just completely consumed by the free throw stuff. The way that it throws off other teams, you see these other coaches be completely apoplectic about it. Last night, Shai finished with more free throw attempts than the entire Detroit Pistons team throughout what was, again, a 114-110 win for Oklahoma City in overtime. And it just, I kept thinking, and if you recall, there was like a couple of weeks ago when Shai hit that other buzzer beater, that I was like, oh, this is going to be a tipping point moment where people are going to start to go, you know what, we need to just stop thinking about the officiating all the time and move into more, hey, what is it that this guy does great? Appreciate this guy a little bit differently. Maybe he's going to move into the greater narrative of the NBA for the things that he accomplishes. But it seems to have gone in the complete opposite direction, where it's foul talk. It was this way when they played the Celtics. It became the number one storyline. It was just recently the number one storyline when they just faced the Knicks. And now it's the number one storyline when they face the Pistons. And it's becoming, I don't really know where to land on it, I'll be honest, because some of it I think is totally justified. But again, I don't think we've ever done this with a player before. Unless somebody can tell me who that guy is, who is the superstar player that we complained every single game, essentially, about the way that they are officiated and dug into a million different think pieces on it. It's totally unprecedented. Never seen a superstar get this kind of treatment in terms of the way that they're discussed. Anyways, quick break. Ben Nicholson-Smith is next.
It's not a baby shower without games. It's not a toast without glasses. It's not Easter without baskets. And with thousands of products under $5, it's not a party till you stopped at Party City. Party City, Canada. Now it's a party.
It's Charles Barkley with Wayfair. It's outdoor season, and my patio setup better be ready to play. That's where Wayfair wins. Patio seating, umbrellas, and grills. All delivered fast and easy. Shop wayfair.ca now.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
UHN has just been ranked the #2 hospital in the world. Hi, I'm Julie Kenville, CEO at UHN Foundation. Donor support helps us recruit the best doctors to care for our community. Help us today at uhnfoundation.ca.
At Loblaws, get PC or Butterball frozen turkeys for $1.98 a pound until April 1st. Get it delivered with your first year of PC Express Pass. Just $2.50 a month. Conditions apply. See loblaws.ca for details. Loblaws.
You know that moment when you want to quit smoking, but it feels harder than expected? Zonic can help. A nicotine pouch that curbs nicotine cravings fast, supporting your quit journey one step at a time. Proud to be the official smoking cessation partner of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Because progress towards quitting is worth cheering for. Ask your pharmacist about Zonic today. This product may not be right for you. Always read and follow the label. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is highly addictive, only to be used by adults who are trying to quit smoking.
Spring is just around the corner, and that means Chevrolet's Truck Month is back. For a limited time, get $6,000 in total cash purchase discounts on the 2026 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 Custom Trail Boss, Canada's most affordable 2-inch factory-lifted V8 truck. With Silverado's off-road capability combined with its powerful 5.3-liter V8 engine, you'll be ready to take on whatever lies ahead. Hurry in, Truck Month won't last long. Visit your local Chevrolet dealer for details.
Turn your overhead space into valuable floor space with CanadaMez.ca. Whether you need a storage platform or a multi-level catwalk system, CanadaMez.ca will work with you to create the best solution for your business, all for a fraction of the cost of a new building. A proud Canadian manufacturer, CanadaMez.ca products are designed in Canada by Canadians using Canadian source materials. Get your no-obligation quote at CanadaMezz.ca and see how they've been creating space for your business for over 60 years.
When you're hiring, have you ever felt like you're missing out on meeting great candidates? Well, they're not hard to find when you go to ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter helps 10 million people with their job search every day. People who are actively looking for jobs like yours. So it's easy to find the right person fast. 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.ca/Canada. That's ziprecruiter.ca/Canada.
Hey, it's Matt Marchese. And I'm Mike Futa. We're discussing the top stories of the day across the NHL and the hockey world, weekdays at noon.
It's the Fan Hockey Show on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and wherever you get your podcasts.
CJCL Toronto.
So for the first time this year, the Blue Jays didn't get to be a positive distraction from all the drama in Toronto Maple Leaf land. Ben Nicholson-Smith, MLB insider and reporter for Sportsnet. He joins me now. What's up, buddy? How we doing? Good morning.
JD, big news in Leafs land. I'll have to go and listen to your first hour to understand that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I don't know if it was coherent, buddy. I had to do Leafs talk last night. I had to quit the quick turnaround this morning. We'll see. That's one of those ones where I finish it and I go, I hope that was okay. I hope that was all right.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
I know the feeling from doing podcasts and radio and
course.
TV hits. It's like, yeah, did I make sense at all there?
Yeah. This is one of those days where I just need a pat on the back from a producer. They're like, you're really good today. I'll be like, thanks. I don't trust you fully on this, but I appreciate that. Anyway, so yesterday, big news. Obviously, Blue Jays lose. They get spanked by the Colorado Rockies. It's a tough one, but it's highlighted because Cody Ponce goes down with an injury. And this is something you and I spent a lot of time talking about, how these things figure themselves out and what happens if there's an injury. And it ends up happening the first time through the order. But let's just start with this. The injury itself, do we have any update outside of, hey, his knee got a little hyperextended and we're still waiting on results?
Yeah, he was going for an MRI, so that will give the Blue Jays more information about what exactly happened within that knee area. It did not look good. Even sitting a couple hundred feet away, it was pretty clear to all of us watching on TV, watching at the ballpark, it did not look good. I think at this point, it would be a surprise if he makes his next start. I don't think I'm going too far out on a limb in saying that. We'll see what the Blue Jays do. Typically in a situation like this, they are at minimum going to call a pitcher to Toronto, and then they'll figure out, hey, is this guy going to be activated? What's the actual plan? We have seen a report from Francis Romero saying that Lázaro Estrada has been called up to the Blue Jays. I haven't confirmed that myself, but certainly makes sense, like the kind of move they might make.
Okay, so there's a few things here. One is, everybody's pulling for Cody Ponce, all right? Nobody wants to see a guy who was as emotional as he was talking about getting back to the majors, getting that contract with the Toronto Blue Jays. Seems to be just a very down-to-earth, likable guy. But I got to tell you, that's one of the least athletic injuries I've ever seen in any sport ever. Like, it was, like, I did. I'm sorry. I kind of had to laugh at it. I was like, are you kidding me, man? Like, he had just fallen down on the mound, and then he tries to field a grounder. And, yeah, it looked like he had never run before in his life, and he hyperextends the knee. My only hope is that the way it did look, because at first he pulls up and he's like, it looked like the snake bite injury, which as an NBA fan, you go, oh my God, did he tear his Achilles? Like, did his Achilles pop? because that's the way that you move after that kind of an injury, right? Like it's like the sharp bite that people say ends up happening, and he was moving around differently. I've seen a bunch of doctors online talking about how they think it's a hyperextended knee. I don't know what that timeline is for a pitcher, but you would have to think, like you said, that he's missing his next start at the very least. The question is, do the Blue Jays maybe ride this thing out from a who starts standpoint, because they've got off days that sort of give them an opportunity to run a 4-man rotation until I think it's like April 8th.
Yeah, they have some time here where they have off days each of the next few weeks, starting as soon as this Friday. Oddly, they have a Friday off day scheduled in Chicago. I mean, there's rain in the forecast, so hard to predict exactly how that's going to play out. But yeah, they have that flexibility. I think with the Dodgers series coming up, the way things line up now would still be Scherzer, Gausman, Cease. I think you probably want to keep it that way. Like if you are, let's say in the scenario that Ponce goes on the injured list and you're recalling someone to bolster the rotation, you're probably not having that individual debut against the Dodgers, right?
Correct.
So I think you keep that the way it is. The Twins come in right after the Dodgers. So if the Blue Jays wanted to insert someone into the rotation 10 days from now, when the Twins are in town, then that could be a nice landing spot for someone who's joining the rotation. But it's also possible the Blue Jays wouldn't go to a traditional starting pitcher, and they might do something more akin to a bullpen game, because it's not as though, and this is where like all of a sudden they don't quite have enough pitching depth, because you look at the AAA rotation, they have guys who can help, no question about that. But it's not clear that they have guys who can help in the capacity of being an MLB ready starting pitcher.
Yeah, it truly is incredible that they went 8 starting pitchers deep, and a week into the season, they're like, they don't have enough starting pitching.
Now it's 4. It's cut in half.
It's nuts. So this is the other follow-up question, though, is, so I think that Trey Savage is supposed to throw today. Yes?
Yeah, he has a 3-inning simulated game scheduled.
Okay. So there is some belief that the injury that Trey Savage suffered, the shoulder impingement, is at least a touch of a phantom IL for this guy. They're going to be very cautious with his shoulder. I don't think that they're going to necessarily like expedite the plan because of an injury, right? Like if you've got a long-term vision for this player, you're probably not going to want to move off of it. But how close do you think Savage is, if things go well today, in terms of being able to at least come up and contribute what would still be, by my estimation, based on their program for him that they kind of outlined, like, you know, you're getting 3-4 innings for them? Or does it even make it more complicated to have him now, because you don't want to be taxing the bullpen, so you don't have room for a guy that essentially is just a 3-inning starting pitcher?
I mean, I think if Savage was fully ready to go and he's operating at 100% for 3 innings, you take that and you just make it work. The way the Jays are describing things is between his starts, if you want to call them that, between his outings, his pitch days in the course of this ramp up. Previously, it's been about 8 or 9 days between. So they've been really, really deliberate in the course of ramping them up. Now they're going to condense that a little bit, bring it closer to, maybe 7, maybe 6. Eventually get him closer to that 5 range that you'd need to be a major league starting pitcher. So that's going to be a gradual process that will probably take a couple weeks, the way John Schneider was describing it. So I don't think that even if things go really, really well in Savage's minor league appearance, I don't anticipate that that's going to lead to, all right, he's now good to go. He is an option for the major league team right away.
So ultimately what we're discussing here is, even with the off days, because of Savage's injury, and the likelihood of Ponce, basically the only way that they don't end up with a guy that's from the minors starting a baseball game for them in the next 2 weeks is if Cody Ponce miraculously turns out to be fully healthy.
Right. I think that's a pretty good read.
Yeah.
Unless they were to go out and sign Patrick Corbin or something, to
not,
to get a stopgap.
I don't think they're doing that though, right? Like
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
But that's my read as well.
Yeah, okay. And then, because, again, just to do timelines here in terms of guys, it certainly at least sounds like what you're saying with Trey Savage is that we're pretty much a minimum of around a month away from seeing him start in the major leagues, based on, like, that build-up plan, right? Somewhere around there?
Yeah, like now it's March 31st, right? If he were back in the major leagues toward the end of April, I think that would be pretty good based on the way they're describing things.
Okay, but it's the same timeline with Barrios still, right? End of April-ish?
Well, Barrios, I also wonder if it could go a little quicker. And with him, because he was already built up to like pretty much 5
Right.
innings in AAA with a stress fracture in his elbow, then they shut him down to rest a little bit, and then they're like, go ahead, you know. And this is, I don't mean to make it sound like cavalier, like they're talking to doctors, so of course, as they do this. So with that being said, Barrios now has the license to go ahead and ramp up a little faster. So he's not going to be waiting 8 or 9 days between outings. He can build up. You know, he's scheduled to pitch again on the weekend, and if he's up to 75 pitches in 10 days time, then I could see him in the major leagues within 2 weeks. Something like that would be a very optimistic case for Barrios, but I don't think Barrios is like 4 weeks away.
Yeah, okay. So, but then again, this paints a fairly optimistic picture of all of this. Like, assuming that Cody Ponce is not done for the season, which is still going to be my hope. Again, I know we're all guessing. I know we're all waiting. But based on how accurate the Twitter doctors have been lately, how many wins they've been having, I'm going to...
Are they doing well?
They're doing well lately. They're just doing well
Really?
they're just doing well with Olympic hockey. They had a big win over an NHL insider at Olympic hockey. So now we're doing the thing where it's like, okay, they're winning. But I just saw a couple of them doing, hey, hyperextended knee, nothing that's too serious. I'm like, okay, well, we'll see. Again, he was carted off. So, and it didn't go by me that he's brother-in-laws with George Kittle, who plays for the team in the NFL that is most famously injured, the San Francisco 49ers, because they've got this like power plant issue. You've not heard about any of this?
No, this is totally new to me.
So the San Francisco 49ers practice facility, their stadium, is right beside a power plant. And there's some belief that this power plant creates or helps facilitate breakdown of soft tissues that helps create soft tissue injuries. And so
based on what?
Based on like some pseudoscience-y stuff. Like there is some, it's like electromagnetic pulses that within a certain range can do soft tissue damage. And the 49ers have been basically more injured than any other team. And George Kittle right now is on the IR. Like he shows up yesterday. He's at the Blue Jays game in support of Cody Ponce. And all I could think of was, does Cody go down and watch his practices? Like, how many times was he visiting the Niners facility to see George Kittle? It was definitely running through my head. Either way, I'm hoping that he's all right. But the scenario here could very much be that whatever the stopgap solution is for the starting rotation, whatever bullpen game they end up throwing out there or minor league starter, that realistically we're looking at 2 starts here before a guy like a Barrios is likely to be healthy, a Ponce returns, or when we get a clear Savage timetable that he's around the corner.
Oh yeah, I think it's weeks away in an optimistic scenario, and I think like best case scenario for Barrios might be something like a couple weeks. Best case scenario for Savage might be 3+ weeks, and clearly Bieber will require even more because he's just getting off a mound for the first time on Saturday. So that's probably 6 weeks in a good case scenario. Just when you look at his typical spring training progression, how deliberate they've been with him. So Bieber's clearly the furthest away of the 3. And in the meantime, that creates some real questions for the Blue Jays, as well as things are going for this team right now. As good as Eric Lauer and Cody Ponce and Kevin Gausman look their first time through, you still have those 2 other spots to figure out. And the Ponce question mark looms large right now. That's a massive, massive swing. And it's not just for this week, but if he is out for an extended period, this is someone they really liked. Like they went out and got this guy because they believe he can be really good.
Yeah. What do you think about him in the limited viewing that we ended up getting?
I thought he was pretty good. I mean, he was attacking, right? He was throwing strikes. He got, I think, 12 swinging strikes. That's, to me, it was just, you knew he was going to have pretty good stuff because you can just document that and quantify that even in spring training. So then it's a question of how do you use the stuff? And are you attacking? Do you believe in it? And to see him going out against the Rockies and attacking hitters, throwing strikes, getting ahead, that was really important. And I saw a lot to like in the couple innings before he went down on the ground.
I will say, just in discussing this with you, that there is a potential big winner outcome for Jose Barrios. Like initially, there was a scenario where he was going to come back, and it was going to feel a little awkward, and it was going to be a question mark of, hey, is this guy going to join the rotation? And is it going to be awkward if they remove someone from the rotation who's pitching better or who's pitching well? Or what is the complication going to look like? And all of a sudden, it's like, if he's replacing Estrada after, it doesn't even matter what Estrada does. Even if he pitches great, People are going to be looking at that the same way. What was the kid's name last year that came up and gave them 2 good starts and then just completely fell apart, right?
Easton Lucas.
Easton Lucas. That's it. Like anything you're looking at from Estrada, you got to be looking at through the same lens as Easton Lucas, right? You get a couple of good outings, great. He helped you paper it over until you could get a starter. But now if Barrios can come back and there's a need for him in the rotation and he can come deliver serviceable pitching, especially when, man, the bullpen is like already taxed. We're 4 games in and they're having to use Tyler Heineman to get some outs because the bullpen has already been stretched fairly thin. It's kind of a good narrative bump. It could be something that works out for Jose Barrios.
Well, and I do think that matters because for whatever reason, the dynamic between the Blue Jays and Barrios has been awkward.
It's bumpy.
As we've discussed. Yeah, it's bumpy. So dating back to the World Series, dating back before the World Series when he pitched through some stuff and then he's on the injured list and he's not on the playoff roster, then he's not there physically for the World Series. Of course, I know you noticed that he wasn't there physically for opening day and for the ceremonies. He was rehabbing. Meanwhile, other rehabbing pitchers like Savage and Barrios were in Toronto. So it's, we don't know the reasons exactly for that, but clearly there's a little bit of awkwardness there. But what could shift that dynamic, to your point, would be if the Blue Jays have a clear need in their rotation, they need Jose Barrios. He comes back. He is exactly what this team needs to be a serviceable, dependable major league starter who, by the way, does field his position, extremely, extremely well, is going to give your team 5-6 innings on a very consistent basis. That is someone that would be welcomed within that clubhouse and by this fan base. And so that might be a silver lining in this. But again, we don't know exactly what the severity of the Ponce injury is as we talk right now. So best case scenario, Ponce is back, in short order.
Mm-hmm. Do the Blue Jays make 2 transactions today?
Well, I can see where you're going here. And I think there is a strong case for making 2 transactions today.
Yeah, because I bought Brendan Little stock, all right? I bought it. I fell for it hook, line, and sinker. I saw the reports about the 98-mile-per-hour fastball. I saw the reports about expanding his pitching arsenal. I talked to Arden on Friday, the day of the home opener, about Brendan Little. He was a big story to me. I felt like it became actually a little oversized. At one point, it was like a hipster pick to be buying in on him. And then it became like everyone is thinking that he is going to turn the corner this year and return to the first half of the season, Brendan Little, who had the great stuff, the big punch-outs, some frustrating moments, but ultimately a highly effective reliever. And by my eye, he looks like a guy whose confidence is completely shot. And that sucks to see that this early in the season, but I really don't know how you could be coming to a different conclusion based on the results of these 2 games. And again, it feels when you make a take for a guy having 2 outings in a major league season, that's 162 games, it's very likely you can look like an idiot, right? I've made this joke a million times. Baseball is the sport of making people look stupid who do takes. Because it's not a take sport. It's a large sample size sport. It's supposed to be, 500 plate appearances before you can have a real evaluation of a guy. It's supposed to be a massive amount of innings, a massive amount of games. It's an extremely long season. I get all that. But it's very difficult for me to envision the Blue Jays right now putting Brendan Little into any kind of spot. Because that the spot that they put him in the last game, that was basically as low leverage as it gets. And he got banged around, brother. And it did not look good. The process wasn't good. The body language wasn't good. He couldn't get any outs. He got booed by the fan base, which I think about how popular this team is right now, how beloved this team is right now. And he's getting booed.
Right.
I think he's in a really tough spot. He's got an option. What would be even the case that the Blue Jays don't want to send him down to Buffalo right now to let him try to extend the momentum he had from the spring, rebuild his confidence, and give him a bit of a buffer from the intensity that is the animosity this fan base has for him right now.
Right. And this fan base is in such a good mood.
Right.
When you look at even the way the later part of that game unfolded, and they're cheering the Okamoto home run and, cheering Tyler Heineman when he's pitching, and for good reason, right? This team is 3-1. They have a lot of talent. They obviously did what they did last year. So fans are excited. And in that context, to hear a guy getting booed, it stands out. It stands out for sure. So I think with Brendan Little, you're right. It hasn't looked good. None of us are inside his head. We don't know what's going on. We don't know how confident or non-confident he is, but we can look at the results, which in his first appearance of the season against the Athletics, the results were not good. And he walked a batter. He allowed the grand slam to Langoliers. The Jays had some thought that he might have been tipping pitches. They also thought that he wasn't using his pitch mix right. They wanted to see more four-seam fastballs. That pitch that you and Artem talked about didn't really make that many appearances in his first game of the year.
Yeah.
Then second game, it gets even worse. As you know, I mean, as we all saw last night, it was way worse. The results were definitely, you can't have that kind of results. And let's keep in mind too, the Rockies on the road, this is one of the worst offenses in baseball, typically. So, let's keep that context in mind. This wasn't the LA Dodgers who come to town next week. So when Freddie Freeman and Shohei Ohtani are up, you have a couple lefties, right? Big spot. Game on the line. Is this version of Brendan Little equipped to get those guys out? I have my doubts. Now, if we're looking 3 months down the road, it's the Yankees, you got Bellinger up, you have a big at-bat. Of course, I think Brendan Little can be where he needs to be in 3 months' time. And I think that as this season progresses, he can still be with that stuff that he has and with his experience of getting big outs. Of course, I believe that Brendan Little can be a big part of the 2026 Blue Jays. But at this moment, and again, I understand that it's only 2 outings, but at this moment, he has been hit so hard. He is not fooling hitters right now. And when you think about the things, the tipping, the pitch mix, there's more for him to work on. And it actually might be more conducive for his long-term success and for the team's long-term success to go and do that at AAA for a period of time, then get right, come back, and help the team mid-season.
So I think that there are layers to why this decision has happened. I'm not as I get it. I understand why the fan base is the way that they are with him. Okay. Like everybody needs an outlet. Everybody needs a whipping boy. Every team ends up having one. He is unquestionably the guy, right? Like it is what it is. The results have been bad. Basically every outing that we've had now going back to the postseason and going back to the Mariners has been a bit of a nightmare, right?
Every single one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and it's a small sample, but it's what we got.
And it's also the time that formulated so many different people's opinions about this baseball team, right? Like the idea that you're going to have the memory to think back to Brendan Little first half of last year it's just not a reasonable ask of people. And it shouldn't even be the way that the Blue Jays are looking at this. I'm just saying I'm not giving up on this guy's career, all right? Like if he's throwing 98 and it's from the left side and he's able to recapture some of the stuff that he had in his early successes, that's clearly a valuable player to you. And that's why this should be done with like immediate help because this bullpen is already taxed. So the idea that they're going to use their call up on Estrada for Cody Ponce and thinking like, hey, you're going to actually need this guy to give you some starts. Well, okay, that's one guy that you're not even adding to the bullpen right now. But as we've seen through these first 4 games, they've already had to use everybody a bunch of times. Like I don't even know who's up or who's available today based on what ended up happening yesterday. My thought process would be Brendan Little just pitched. It didn't go very well. You need to be able to try to get his confidence back on track. Try to tell him that you still believe in him, that this is best for his long-term future, that he can work on these things in lower leverage spots. But also, your team could actually really use a Chase Lee, somebody that does come in here. Because, like, today's Max Scherzer on the mound, man. What, you're expecting 7 innings for Max Scherzer today? Like, absolutely not, you are. So if you get 5 from Max Scherzer today, what is the stopgap for the rest of the way to close out the 4 innings of this baseball game? I would be thinking that you would want to just call up an arm because of the state of your bullpen, period. And this guy's kind of giving you an outlet to do that.
Yes, I think that all of that makes sense because you look at Louis Varland, he's pitched 3 of 4.
Yep.
Tyler Rogers has pitched 3 of 4. And arguably, should Tyler Rogers have been pitching last night? That's a question.
Yeah, I didn't like it.
Mileage may vary on that one, but the fact is he pitched. So at this point in the season, 3 of 4 is one thing. You're probably not doing 4 of 5. Typically, most managers in this situation are not doing 4 of 5. That's a pretty heavy workload right out of the chute for guys that you're going to need all season. So stands to reason Varland and Rogers are probably down. Now, you can go to Hoffman, but that's 1 inning. So bridging that gap is potentially going to be challenging if you're up a couple runs, if you're in a really close game, if it's tied, you're going to need guys. And Chase Lee very nearly made this team. He was very much in the discussion to be in the majors opening day with this club as of like 5 days ago. And there's no reason to believe he's been good in the major leagues before. no reason to believe he can't come up and help a major league team like the Blue Jays right away. So that, to me, is someone who could help you now. That would be a very, reasonable move to make, in my opinion, if they were to bring up someone like a Chase Lee and potentially give Brendan Little time to work things out at AAA. I don't know how they're going to do things, right? And I'm sure there are people in the Blue Jays organization who say, no, Little needs to work things out in the majors. There may be very good reasons for that you and I aren't considering presently. But as I look at this now with the information that I have, I think the situation that you're describing makes a lot of sense.
Well, I just don't think that it's fair to this bullpen based on what they have in front of them, or the starting pitchers for that example. Like, these guys are still ramping up. There's not a bunch of guys that you want out there that you're like Cease, for example, you're like, okay, cool, we feel good letting him kind of air it out a little bit more and let him run deeper into a ball game. But you're now in a position where you have a start like that, where you can't let a starter get chased, or you are one injury away from something a little bit more drastic. And I don't want to feel like the bullpen is dying to get to the off day, like that. It's like, holy crap, the Blue Jays need an off day because guys are pitching 3 and 4. It's not a very sustainable outlook for the rest of this season. It's something that we've talked about at the outset. Like, they need to do a better job of handling Jeff Hoffman this season. They need to do a better job of handling Louis Varland this season. And if you looked at yesterday's game, for example, when they kept Spencer Miles in, it was still very much a ball game. Like, Spencer Miles came in and did great work. Louis Varland came in and did great work. They had bridged that gap. They had a moment. It was very much still hanging in the balance. And what happened? The Blue Jays needed to extend a Rule 5 guy longer than they absolutely should have out of necessity. And that's where you worry about the current results, but also the long-term future of the arms for this team. And that's why it's like, I'm sorry, at some point here in the next couple of days, in fact, I think, again, it should be today. Today makes the most sense. You got to be adding more innings to your bullpen. You got to add more length to your bullpen.
And this is where what the Blue Jays decide, we'll probably find out around 3:30, 4 p.m.
Yeah.
What the Blue Jays decide is going to be very telling, right? Because it'll say if they end up sticking with Brendan Little, they have some reason for belief in him. They have some plan for him that they believe is going to work for him. If they flip it, then it goes to show that they're thinking exactly the way you and I are, and that it's time for him to go to the minors and get things right. And again, neither one of us here is saying that he's, to write him up, because the stuff is there, and that's a lot of reason for optimism. It's just when you look at how hitters are presently handling him, they've got a really good plan of attack. And this is the Rockies, not the LA Dodgers.
That's it. I just think that if you're the Blue Jays and you're thinking about Brendan Little from a long-term aspect, if he goes out there in his next outing, or in, let's say, his next outing is fine, but then he pitches against the Dodgers and he gets knocked around, are you going to lose him for the season? Like, how much more damage are you doing by having him go out there and see poor results versus letting him go into lower leverage spots in the minors? And then again, from a practicality standpoint, with where the bullpen's at as of today, because of the situation they've been foisted into with their starting rotation, it just makes too much sense to me. And like, right now, there's not another name in this bullpen that you would be able to do, because sometimes teams get creative, right? They'll send a guy down, they'll wait a little while. They did that with Fisher last year, right? I don't think that they're in a position to be able to be doing that right now. Little is the only guy that makes sense, especially considering, like, this is my next one. I kind of like how Spencer Miles looks. I know that he gave up runs, but it was, again, after they extended him beyond a point that I think that they needed to, or probably should have, given normal circumstances. So far, so good for the Rule 5 pick, right? Like, the demeanor is good. The stuff looks quality. He's getting outs. He was putting into a big leverage spot in the 11th inning. What are your thoughts on Spencer Miles so far this season?
Yeah, honestly, the way he stepped up in his first game was so impressive. Extra innings. To be put into that situation for any pitcher, first outing of the year, there are always going to be a little bit of jitters. But to do that as your major league debut, that is a real test. Runner on second base, first ball hit right back to him. He's got to have the presence of mind to charge at that runner. He did exactly what you should in that situation. Later gets his first major league strikeout, and then stayed locked in too, because if the game had continued, he would have stayed in the game for the Jays. So I really was impressed just by the poise that we saw from him, and the stuff too. I mean, we kind of knew we'd see 98, or, making your major league debut, a guy has 98 in the tank, he's probably finding 98 because of the adrenaline. So I wasn't surprised to see that he was hitting that kind of velo number. But the presence of mind, the poise, that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I think that looks like an early win for these guys. All right, so you wrote an article yesterday talking about the opportunity that's in front of the Blue Jays, and I wanted to discuss that just a little bit with you before you go, which is, you blow a game against the Rockies and it feels weighty out of the gate. You're like, it's just winnable. Like, this team stinks, but bad things happen, so you feel like, all right, whatever. You throw that one out. You ended up getting a pitcher injury. You have to go deep into your bullpen, blah, 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 blah. But weirdly, do you feel like this start to the season is more important than in years past, just given the fact that they did already sweep the A's. They've got the Rockies. They've got the A's. Or, sorry, the White Sox. That getting out to an extremely hot start is, in some ways, more important than it would be against like an average or more difficult slate.
Yeah, I think so for sure, because there are just so few chances in the course of a year to actually beat up on teams. Like, most of the time, you're facing the Rangers and the Brewers. Like, it's two teams that you can compete with. There's not a clear, easy mark in there. It's so rare. And you look at a stretch like they have in June, they're just facing a gauntlet of really, really good team after really, really good team. It's tough. This is a really tough league. And I think that a week like this, where you have the Rockies, objectively one of the worst teams in baseball, and the White Sox, objectively one of the worst teams in baseball, back to back after sweeping, you've got to take advantage of that. And, tonight, in a way, is a big game, because if they lose, they've lost a series to the Rockies. If they win, it's right back on track. So Scherzer knows that. He obviously lives for this. He loves these opportunities. It'll be fun to see him out there for the first time this season, seemingly fully healthy with that thumb stuff behind him. So yeah, it adds a lot to these early games when, on paper, the Blue Jays are by far the better team. But with that being said, they do have to take advantage of this. And it doesn't mean they have to sweep every series, but you'd like to see 2 series wins here. Take a series against the White Sox. I mean, I don't think that's too much to ask when you look at the defending American League champions. Like, that's what they should be doing.
100%. There's also this factor. 10% of Canada tuned into opening day for the Toronto Blue Jays on television. 10%. Home opener. There is an incredible amount of momentum around this baseball team right now. And one of the things that I think that is an advantage for the Toronto Blue Jays is their home field, where you're getting this unbelievable energy that you're talking about it. When Tyler Heineman comes in that game and he's trying to throw strikes, people are cheering when he gets an out. They're cheering for Okamoto's home run in garbage time. They're enthusiastic, and they're just still riding the high of that World Series run. I don't think you want to lose that out of the gate. I think you want to stay extremely red hot, have the fan base completely engaged, have everyone feel like you can, because it's not going to last all year, everyone. Like, it just isn't. The season can feel extremely special, but you're not going to have the vibes at the Rogers Center for the entirety of the year into, the middle of June. People start to go to their cottages. People start to get their summer interests, their summer vacation plans in order, all this different stuff. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. They're going to be a very good baseball team. But the feeling that you're getting right now, that these players are getting trickled down to them onto the field, to me, you want to keep that for as long as possible. You don't want any doubts to start to creep in. You don't want people starting to go off in any type of negative tangent about the baseball team. You want to let it ride as much as you possibly can through the Dodgers series. Have it feel like it's still playoff baseball. Continue to keep that energy in the ballpark.
Yeah. I mean, the Dodgers series will for sure feel like playoff baseball. I thought opening day felt like playoff baseball.
Totally.
Even the Rockies, Rockies on a Monday, the crowd that was there, I don't have the number in front of me. It was like 35,000 people. It was a very good crowd. I mean, they didn't have a lot to cheer for, so unfortunately it wasn't the game that they were hoping for. But yeah, it was a very animated crowd, very full. That is, like, for a Monday night in March against probably the worst draw that you're ever going to see. It goes to show just how obsessed people are with the Blue Jays. And obviously, as a baseball person who covers the Blue Jays, I love that. It's so much fun to have people like really in it. I know, JD, you're a baseball guy, regardless, but when other people are on the bandwagon, it is really fun. And I do think it can be an advantage for the team. The players love it. The coaching staff loves it. John Schneider loves it.
How could they not?
Yeah, of course. It's just a great vibe. And you look around Major League Baseball, like I'm about to go to Chicago this weekend. I'm sure opening day will be pretty exciting there. And then after that, it's going to drop off. There's not going to be 35,000 people U.S. Cellular Field on Sunday. I can tell you that for sure.
No. All right. Last thing before you go. So I do this segment with Ennis every year. It's after the first series or after the first game. It's just early takes that matter. But the caveat being they probably won't matter. Is there something from this first set of 4 games that you think matters for the Blue Jays that we haven't discussed?
I would just say Okamoto, just the fact that he is a big league player.
Yep.
And, you know, of course he is, but you got to prove it.
Yep.
And you got to prove it in something beyond spring training. And 2 home runs, making the plays at third base. I think he can be a solid third baseman. I think he can be a solid hitter. And so from there, there's clearly upside to be better than solid. And there's clearly upside to hit 30 home runs, something he's done 6 times in MPB competition. That upside exists. He's only got 28 to go. I mean, clearly it's on the table for him to do that here. And to do that with the third base, fielding ability that's at least average in Major League Baseball, and the contact ability, the ability to work a plate appearance like he did, an 8-pitch walk against the Athletics over the weekend. These are skills that he's demonstrating against some of the best players in the world. I know it's the A's and the Rockies, but it's still Major League Baseball, and he's doing it. And that, to me, is very significant for the Blue Jays as they move forward.
Totally agree. If Tyler Rogers had gotten off to a slow start where teams are nickel and diming him and they're punching a couple of singles through and he gives up a run, I don't think anybody reacts to that in any kind of way. If Dylan Cease had come out in his first outing and he struck out a bunch of guys, but he spotted them 4 runs, I don't think anybody would have made any conclusive feelings about that signing or felt any kind of way about it until there was a sample there, because we know who he is. With Okamoto, there's a lot of unknown. So for him to come in right away, have a presence, look like a major leaguer, field his position, hit for some power, hit in some big spots and come through, like I think that there's a mutual benefit that Okamoto feels more himself. Like he feels more a part of the team immediately. He doesn't come out as somebody that people are pointing to and going, are we really sure about this guy? Versus him feeling confident, him feeling like he does belong in the major leagues, that he does belong with this team with aspiration, that it is this loved, and that the fan base kind of gives that back to him. So I actually think, like, in terms of guys whose starts have been the most important and meaningful, I think you're bang on.
Yeah, and I think, like, he's described as a pretty low maintenance guy for being the caliber of star that he is in Japan. But at the same time, I think that we can almost like underappreciate how much pressure is on these guys, and seeing the amount of media that the media that's covering him, it's pretty substantial. And there's a huge storyline. Like Sagano used to play on the Giants with Okamoto in Japan for years. So that was like a big storyline in Japan going into yesterday's game. And I think that those of us in Toronto, of course, were focused on the Blue Jays, but his significance to Japan is hard to overstate. And so with that in mind, if he had started 0 for 12 or 0 for 15 or, something along those lines, then the pressure would build. And I think now he's just pushed that pressure aside. He's had a couple Gatorade showers, and he has proven that whatever happens from here, he's already made some contributions to the Blue Jays, and they're definitely in a better spot because they have him playing third base.
Yeah, he's already popular, and now he has some room for error if he does end up going into a little bit of a mini slump to start the year. Ben Nicholson-Smith, again, MLB insider, reporter for Sportsnet at the Letters. Thanks as always for making time, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, JD.
See you, pal. All right, quick break, but before we do that, little acts of kindness in a time when it seems everything is hopeless is one small way to make things better. And one simple act you can take today to have a direct impact on your community is donating blood at your nearest Canadian Blood Services donation center. This small act can save multiple lives. The need is always there, and it can bring a sense of contribution to a world in need of solutions. Choose a moment of hope today. Make a donation appointment by visiting blood.ca, the Give Blood app, or call 1-888-2DONATE. Quick break, what we missed.
We're your home of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Hear the action on Sportsnet 590 The Fan, streaming on the Sportsnet app and at sportsnet.ca/590.
University Health Network has been named the #2 hospital in the world. I'm Kevin Smith, President and CEO of UHN. We're united to create the best care, education, and research. Visit uhnfoundation.ca.
This week at Real Canadian Superstore, get 1 pound of strawberries for only $2 each. Plus, get it delivered with your first year of PC Express Pass at just $2.50 per month. Conditions apply. See flyer for details at superstore.ca/flyer.
Hey, that new? My McD's Egg BLT Bagel Breakfast Sandwich? Yeah, that. It's not new. Are you sure? I've had it before.
How many times?
Like a million, dude.
No way.
Oh, yes way.
So you're saying a freshly cracked egg with crispy bacon, lettuce, and tomato all on a bagel is not new?
Exactly.
Huh. Who knew?
Try a bagel breakfast sandwich at McDonald's today. Not new, but maybe to you. Available until 11 a.m. at participating McDonald's restaurants in Canada. Product availability varies by restaurant.
Meet iPhone 17e. A whole lot for a lot less. With an almighty, all-powerful A19 chip. And Ceramic Shield 2, built to survive this. And this. And a 48-megapixel fusion camera with 2x optical quality zoom. And double the starting storage of iPhone 16e. And long-lasting battery life for hours of watching the studio.
That's the dream!
And it comes with Apple Intelligence. And you can charge it with USB-C or with MagSafe accessories. And a whole lot more. All for a lot less. Get the new iPhone 17e at Bell today. Battery life varies by use. Pricing compared to iPhone 17.
The legendary Yeti thrives in cold environments.
Just like my Subaru. All-wheel drive is like having an extra pair of Yeti legs.
The Yeti's natural habitat is in colder climates, but it's been spotted all over Canada.
Just like Subaru. We go everywhere, enjoying winter with the little ones. They grow up so fast. Legendary winters await, so hurry into your local Subaru dealer for lease and finance rates as low as 0.5%. Conditions apply. See dealer for details. Subaru, uncommon comes standard.
Meet iPhone 17e. A whole lot for a lot less. With an almighty, all-powerful A19 chip. And Ceramic Shield 2, built to survive this. And this. And a 48-megapixel fusion camera with 2x optical quality zoom. And double the starting storage of iPhone 16e. And long-lasting battery life for hours of watching the studio.
That's the dream!
And it comes with Apple Intelligence. And you can charge it with USB-C or with MagSafe accessories. And a whole lot more. All for a lot less. Get the new iPhone 17e at Telus today. Battery life varies by use. Pricing compared to iPhone 17.
1877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids. 1877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Ready to get rid of that old car? Donate it today at carsforkids.ca. That's cars with a K. Donation's super easy, and you'll get a maximum tax credit.
1877 Cars for Kids. Donate your car today.
Great goal! Let's go to Dave at the bench.
Oh, what a shot, Gord.
Last time we spoke, you had been really tired. Not anymore.
Yeah, snoring all night. Losing sleep ruins your game.
Problem snoring? Suffer from sleep apnea? Invest in yourself. Call Dr. Paulette Pillersdorf. She'll use her laser to help treat your snoring and oral appliance like a sports mouth guard for your sleep apnea. Your partner will thank you.
Thanks, Gord. Book your appointment with Dr. Paulette Pillersdorf. Call 647-243-2006.
Help shouldn't be hard to find. Unifor Local 414 invites you to join the BMO Walk So Kids Can Talk on Sunday, May 3rd, so more youth can get help and feel out loud with Kids Help Phone. There are walks at Streetsville Memorial Park in Streetsville and Ashbridges Bay Park in Toronto, as well as Vaughan, London, and Kitchener-Waterloo. Register, fundraise, and donate at walksokidscantalk.ca. A message from Unifor Local 414, proud supporters of Kids Help Phone.
Why switch to a Leva Sleep Adjustable Bed? Because it's a better bed. Better than your regular bed. Better than your snoring partner bed. Better than your pillow wall bed. Definitely better than the couch. A Leva Sleep Adjustable Bed is better because you can adjust your side of the bed your way and their side of the bed to the anti-snore preset. Better your relationship when you better your bed with a Leva Sleep Adjustable Bed. See why it's better. Visit one of our 6 Leva Sleep showrooms or levasleep.com.
Spring is just around the corner, and that means Chevrolet's Truck Month is back. For a limited time, get $6,000 in total cash purchase discounts on the 2026 Chevrolet Silverado 1500 Custom Trail Boss, Canada's most affordable 2-inch factory-lifted V8 truck. With Silverado's off-road capability combined with its powerful 5.3-liter V8 engine, you'll be ready to take on whatever lies ahead. Hurry in, Truck Month won't last long. Visit your local Chevrolet dealer for details.
Breaking Lotto Max Dream News. With Tuesday's Lotto Max jackpot at an estimated $65 million, plus an estimated 8 Max Millions, maxed out dreams are rapidly popping up across the country, turning pools into lakefront cottages, boats into super yachts, decks into rooftop spas. It's dreaming like we've never dreamed before. Tuesday's Lotto Max jackpot is an estimated $65 million, plus an estimated 8 Max Millions. Why dream to the min when you can dream to the max?
In Canada, the leading cause of death is cancer.
What if you could see it coming before symptoms appear? Whole Body MRI offers advanced medical scans using our state-of-the-art AI-powered MRI machines, which can detect early-stage cancers and 500 other conditions with zero radiation. Take control of your health. Visit wholebodymri.ca to book now. Again, that's wholebodymri.ca. Get scanned.
Let's flip a coin. Heads, you grow your business. Tails, you earn on your cash. Most banks make you pick a side. Float says, be all in. With Float, eligible Canadian businesses get up to $3 million in flexible, interest-free credit to keep building, all while their idle cash earns up to 4% interest in Float. Spend on credit and earn on balances. Heads and tails. Being all in means giving your business both. Learn how Float is all in on Canada at floatfinancial.com.
The legendary Yeti thrives in cold environments.
Just like my Subaru, all-wheel drive is like having an extra pair of Yeti legs.
The Yeti's natural habitat is in colder climates, but it's been spotted all over Canada.
Just like Subaru, we go everywhere enjoying winter with the little ones. They grow up so fast. Legendary winters await, so hurry into your local Subaru dealer for lease and finance rates as low as 0.5%. Conditions apply. See dealer for details. Subaru, uncommon comes standard.
Summer bookings are off to the races. And if you're still thinking about it, ambitious. Book early with Sunwing and get a $100 voucher per pair, plus excursion discounts, resort perks, and more. So while everyone else is doing last-minute vacation gymnastics, yeah, you don't want to do that. You're saving on room upgrades, tours, and all the good stuff. So book by April 12th with your local travel advisor or at... Conditions apply. See sunwing.ca for details.
Hi, it's Fido. We've got 5G for you, and it's all affordable too. Check out our phone plans at fido.ca. Fido, at your side.
Sportsnet 590, The Fan.
Okay, we will close out this show. Back tomorrow. We'll see what Keith Pelly has to say today. 2 p.m., Sportsnet 590, Sportsnet 360, Sportsnet Plus, streaming on sportsnet.ca. He's got a news conference. Justin Cuthbert and Mike Futa will cover it. I'll be listening in. We'll probably be chopping up some clips if there's anything relevant for tomorrow's show. I've got Justin Bourne in. He'll kind of break that thing down with me. But before we do that, it is the time of the show where we do what we missed. Can I say something to you before we start this? Because I've had one that's been bothering me for days, and we keep forgetting to get to it.
Let's go.
I can't believe Anthony Davis has the gall to make a prank show right now and to be like starting his... First of all, has Anthony Davis had one funny moment where we've looked... Like, because you're a Lakers fan, I'm genuinely asking you this. So you watched him up close and personal for years and years and years. Like, did he ever exude this guy is the next Ashton Kutcher energy?
No, he does joke around. He likes to joke around. He's lighthearted for sure, but he's not exactly who you look for to like lead the charge.
He's not Blake Griffin.
No, he's not.
Yeah, like
he doesn't have that.
That's what I mean. He's not like this.
But he probably got offered it a couple years ago, right?
You think?
I do think so, until it gets to the point where they actually release the show.
I just cannot imagine. All right, this is the thing. I just don't see the person on planet Earth who's like, and granted, this is clearly a show that's being done for clips, right? Like they want clips.
Yeah.
This is a social media show. This is an actual sit-down television show. But like, imagine you met up with someone. You're like, hey man, what'd you do yesterday? And they're like, I watched the Anthony Davis prank show, and you know what? It's actually pretty good. Like, that's not a conversation. Some people believe in simulation theory, and we're going to get all these different... There's not one outcome for an Anthony Davis prank show. I can't think of a piece of content that has been less desired than this. And especially like this man was the face of the prank. The only way the prank show would be good is if they were like, just kidding about the Luka trade.
Go through every injury AD had and talk about it in depth. How did you get hurt here, brother?
His last injury is he's out for the season with a thumb.
So you know some Lakers forgot he was on the Wizards. They played last night.
Yeah.
And they asked Rui post-game, and he's like, I actually forgot
he
was like coming. Like he's on the Wizards bench.
That's what I mean. Like for a guy if I was a Wizards fan and we traded for you, and your first thing was, I need to get my prank show off the ground as I'm sitting there in the street clothes with a thumb injury that happened from a guy lightly bumping into him, I can't think of worse PR or like a worse guy to have at the centerpiece of this. Like, again, unless the Luka trade was a prank, that was an incredible prank, the all-time prank that he works in Nico to this somehow. And they're like, you guys bought these last 2 NBA seasons. They don't even count. All of this was a joke.
Probably a part of it is AD trying to capitalize on him knowing these opportunities are running out.
Yeah, but why? I just, of all if you would have given me a list of, again, there's always been guys who are in the NBA who you thought were going to have some sort of a television career.
Mm-hmm.
Shaq, right?
Yeah.
It was obvious. Barkley, it was obvious. Blake Griffin, so obvious. I've never once been like, man, it'd be cool if AD had a show where he did some fun stuff. I feel like there's more layers to the Anthony Davis side of things in a fun, quirky way. It just doesn't work for me at all. Anyway, do you have any thoughts on what I was saying about Shai earlier? How we've never seen a superstar like this?
We saw one in my lifetime that we did this for, and I know we're going to look back at this guy's career and be like, so underrated, so underappreciated. That was so stupid. James Harden. James Harden, we did this stuff with where we actually ended up changing rules to a certain degree, which we might do with Shai as well.
Yeah.
It's possible. And they mend the game and they change the game and they manipulate the game so much that you literally have to change the rules or change how you guard them. People were guarding James Harden from behind him. Like, that was crazy. But James.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Couldn't get over the hump.
Yeah.
He would have beat the best team of this century, arguably, with the Lakers of beginning of the century. But if he beat the Warriors and did this, we'd have been like, oh my God. But I still think we're going to look back at James Harden. And I tease you about this all the time.
Now, Zach Lowe had the perfect thing where he's modern day Karl Malone, and I think that's right. Where it's like, yes, so James Harden gets way more respect from current players than Malone ever did. Like the past generation doesn't look back on Malone and they're like, oh man, he doesn't get enough credit, or he was so good, or like he was actually as good as MJ. The current players talk about Harden in a way that he is more revered amongst his peers than he is amongst the common fans. Like, a lot of people believe that he had more of an impact on basketball than anybody outside of Steph Curry in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
A lot of people believe that he was better than Dwayne Wade. I don't believe that. I think that peak Dwayne Wade was absolutely better than James Harden because he was a two-way player and he did win. And he won on a title team where it was really him by himself. Like, it was an aged out Shaq. He did win. It was a controversial championship for sure. Some people forget that.
That's an ethical one, though.
But it was totally an ethical championship that he ended up getting with a bunch of veterans, man. Like, it was that
White Chocolate on his way out.
Gary Payton on his way out.
Antoine
Antoine Walker on his way out. Shaq on the decline. Like, that's such an ethical championship, the beginning of Flash. But I just also think, like, there was really a moment where when LeBron went to D-Wade's team, the consensus was, hey, he's going to join the second best player in the NBA. And while I think Harden had conversations about being one of the best players in the NBA, even when he was winning MVPs and the runners-up for MVPs, like the year with Russ where he should have won it, nobody looked at him like, this is the best player in the NBA. This is that, like, he is the best guy.
Yeah.
They were like, he's the best scorer. He might be the best scorer of this generation. He's one of the best scorers of all time. But you're right.
I wonder if we looked at that wrong, though, JD.
No,
Maybe he was.
No, he was unbelievably good. But you're right. We did. I feel like we talked a lot about his foul baiting and him getting to the free throw line. But I don't think it was the same way with Shai in the sense of people were as furious about it. That people were coming out of Rockets games and every head coach was like, what the hell? And what's up with the whistles? And everyone was pointing to the free throw discrepancy every single night. It was more like, this guy is trying to get free throws more than we have seen from other elite scorers in a way that is materially different than before, where it's like, it's a layup, it's a dunk, it's a Clint Capella play at the rim, it's him going to the free throw line, or it's him shooting a three. And so, like, I actually think all the Harden criticisms are totally fair about his career. Like, he has been an unquestionable choker in the postseason. Like, right now, if you're talking about the greatest chokers in sports, it's like Harden's at the very top, Lamar Jackson's right there. Like, it's a small collection of guys. But you're right, we did talk a lot about it, but not this way with Shai, where I've never seen, like, remember it was just Chris Finch? Yeah. And now it's after every game.
No, there's certain coaches that only get ejected when they play OKC.
Yeah,
Mike
that's it.
Brown's one of them.
Yes.
Chris Finch is one of them.
Yep.
When this documentary of OKC comes out, I gotta know, what was the conversation they had last year Did they actually say, okay, we're just going to be so physical from the get-go of the game, they're not going to know how to officiate us? I want to know the minutia of what went into that process.
I think that's the difficulty people have, is that the Thunder play so physical on perimeter defense. Like they've got the Dorts and the Carusos of the world. Yeah. And then Shai gets the ticky-tack calls. I think it's the dichotomy of those two things that drives people so nuts. Anyways, we'll see you tomorrow.
Tired of waiting for the end of the game to get paid? That's why Bet365, an official partner of the NHL, has 3-goal early payout. If the team you're riding goes up 3 goals at any point in the game, they'll pay your bet out early. That's one less thing you have to wait around for. Bet365. Download the app and see what early payout's all about. Must be 19 or older, Ontario only. Please play responsibly. If you or someone you know has concerns about gambling, visit connexontario.ca. Terms and conditions apply.